Crusader of Centy, a rare gem of an action RPG where you can utilize the unique abilities of animals, is a late release in the Genesis library, and a fun time. In today's video, I present you with my review for Crusader of Centy on the SEGA Genesis. The would-be hero of this story is Corona, a young man turning 14 years of age, gearing up to venture out into the world with his late father's sword and shield to take on the monsters that threaten the very existence of the human race. Along the way, Corona loses his ability to speak with people and gains the ability to speak with plants and animals. Some of these animals end up tagging along with you on your quest. Each has their own personality of sorts, as well as their own unique ability to aid Corona on his adventure in becoming a hero. But how does one define hero in Crusader of Centy anyway? Especially when the story doesn't feel like something that is consistently hinted at or mentioned in general dialogue with NPCs. I played through a decent portion of the game without any real understanding behind the meat and potatoes of this adventure, simply because the goal seemed to be focused on the collection of animals, and to get from point A to point B and so on. In fact, I got so involved, just having fun playing the game, that I caught myself right in the thick of it having to stop and ask, what's the point of what I'm doing? What the heck is the story about? I found this pleasantly surprising in a weird sort of way, because the story wasn't forced on me or demanded my attention, but rather the game flowed in such a way which allowed me to jump into something engaging, and that led to exploration and discovery, which I found rather nice. Toward the later half of the game, however, the story comes into full swing as things go in an unexpected direction that even I didn't see coming. Crusader of Centy has some of the most colorful graphics on the Genesis. The menu screen, main character, NPCs, animals, and most enemies, including bosses, have rich primary colors that pop very nicely. The world map has a light, almost pastel-like appearance, while the actual environments you traverse have a mix of dark and light tones, with hints of vibrant color thrown in here and there for good measure. It all makes for an interesting blend. The game plays from a top-down perspective, with several regions to explore, some with minor puzzle-solving mechanics and hidden pathways that lead to valuable items. Animation in some of the environments is very smooth and definitely a nice touch, such as on an enemy beach with the rolling waves, and in the mountains of Hot Daisy with the lava. There are some neat effects with boss fights too, such as with Baron in the shifting sand platform, or with Chameleon and his ability to blend in with what's around him. The boss fight with Muldra is particularly neat because of the scrolling dark clouds in the background. The overall environmental design in Crusader of Centy has lots of places to explore with minor backtracking here and there, and each area visited offers some unique experiences. The soundtrack has a wide range of tunes which I'm sure you will enjoy, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of them got stuck in your head. You may even find yourself jamming along while you play. They are pretty fun and all around just feel good to listen to. There are a few that leave quite the impression on me, so much so that I wouldn't mind getting my hands on the soundtrack to listen to outside of the game. I really like the music for Hot Daisy and the area off of an enemy beach where the wind blows fiercely enough to knock you around. Of course, the music for an enemy beach is rather nice too, but the one that I think has the most potential to get stuck in your head is the music that plays while you're in town. As for the sound effects, they're pretty straightforward. There's two that stand out to me the most. One is when you collect an apple of life, and the other is when you have chili equipped and hit an enemy with your sword. I really like that ice clank effect. It just sounds so cool. Get it? It sounds cool? Ice sword. Moving on. For an action RPG, the difficulty is pretty light on its feet, and there really isn't any kind of grind required. As with enemies, there isn't much of a challenge here. Just about every enemy you encounter can easily be taken out. Even the bosses are super easy to defeat. I'm not saying enemies and bosses can't or won't deal damage here, because it will happen as there are enough cheap hits to go around. I'm just saying that every battle is pretty short-lived, and at the end of each one, you're more than likely going to be the victor. The only thing I can think of where there might be any challenge is locating hidden items and figuring out some puzzles. But then again, it pays to communicate with NPCs, unless you're the silent type. If that's the case, the internet is your friend. Movement feels pretty decent. Swordplay, on the other hand, is something to be desired at times. The issue here is that you have to be facing a certain direction in order to make contact with enemies as to end them. This is where the cheap enemy hits may come into play. My biggest gripe, however, is not being able to cut the grass. Alright, so the game isn't about lawn care. I get that. But if a part of it allows me to cut grass to find coins, then call me a lawnmower. However, you can be right next to grass, and when you swing that sword and it's a no-go, it's rather annoying. You also run into this problem when trying to hit switches. Don't expect to earn experience points, level up, or upgrade any of your animal companions during your adventure. You can upgrade your sword if you meet certain requirements, and you can earn more health when locating apples of life. There are 15 throughout the game. Each animal serves a different purpose, some being more preferred over others, but all will offer help in some way. You can equip 2 at a time, and depending on which combination are equipped, they can produce unique effects, such as making your sword more powerful, or causing Corona to run faster. Not just that, but some animals have standalone functions as well. You can see which animal does what by pressing the C button. Personally, during my playthrough, I never did utilize this with any of the animals, except for Rio the armadillo, simply because it was a necessity. I can really appreciate the direction Crusader Centy went in with the ability to collect and utilize the 16 different animal friends available. This isn't something I've seen before in an RPG, and it was refreshing to have something unique like this to experience. It made traversing the world enjoyable, and upon obtaining a new animal, I knew it meant further exploration was around the corner. The game isn't perfect. There are some textural errors. It's rather short-lived, and I really wish there was some depth in the animal department, such as seeing some upgrades and leveling up. However, the fun factor is on point, and let's not forget how awesome the soundtrack is, with the memorable tracks that sound great, even though some of them often repeat. But that's far from a bad thing. I just wish there was more to go around, but I do enjoy what's here. Overall, I'm really glad that I played and completed Crusader of Centy. It was a definite worthwhile playthrough. There's enough here to keep you busy for a little while, and plenty to encourage you to play it again at some point down the line. Regarding the ability to collect coins, there really isn't much of a point. There are a couple of animals you can rent. One that acts like a revival potion should you meet your doom, and the other has a one-time use which explodes, causing damage to whichever enemies are on screen. Personally, I had no use for either or. They just hung out in my inventory the entire game. The only thing that is seriously worth purchasing, and this is super dependent on whether or not you're a completionist, is an apple of life someone is selling for 800 coins. Speaking of those things, the apples of life, it really isn't all that necessary to collect every one of them, unless again you're a completionist, that or you have a difficult time staying alive. As mentioned previously, I would have loved it if we had the ability to level up the animals as well as upgrade their abilities. This was a missed opportunity that could have brought much more depth to the game. It would have also lengthened it as well as added some grind. Perhaps someday we might see a reboot or sequel, who knows. And lastly, if you hadn't noticed, there are some biblical themes present here. Tower of Babel, Leviathan, and the history of the monsters you encounter are just a few. Thought I'd mention it for the Bible enthusiasts out there. This is Random Battle signing off, Until next time,
Stay proud and battle on.